It's a great day, man. I'm super excited about the draft. I want it to start like in 5 minutes, but we got a couple more days to wait. Um, we'll get to talking about it, get you guys ready for the draft, and see what we can do with these prospects here.
Love it. I mean, LeBron, 20 rebounds, 38 years old, handling Jaren Jackson. It just has to be stated. I mean, after the game, the guy was dead. I mean, doing it all, but they waited till the end to turn it on. But credit Memphis, man. That's a good team, and job ain't finished. So, little quick draft news, possibly. I know this morning we were talking a little bit about the top 3 draft picks being frozen on the betting lines. So, word about a trade or anything like that. Any news on your ends or any thoughts on some trades over those, top few teams and something happening? Or do you see it staying pat?
I think that thing that we were talking about with Bryce Young's, CJ Stroud's agent is coming into play. You know, uh, I think that Houston is realizing that they have to do something, and moving out of that spot, gaining more capital might be the best thing for them. If I were to guess what's brewing, I would think it's that. I don't know. Do you guys got any other thoughts?
That was actually my thought. I don't see anything changing except possibly that, because we've all heard the rumors, we've all heard the issues with his agent. If anything's going to happen, it's going to be with Houston. They're going to move down, possibly still stay in the first round, but going after something different outside of the QB range. But I don't know. It's a weird thing, and it's also going to have to do with who Carolina takes with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and I don't see Carolina making a trade now unless somebody comes knocking on the door with something crazy, because they made a trade to get that pick already, and you haven't heard it, and we know what it takes to get it. So I don't think somebody's going to come with that haul, draft night or day before and surprise them. So Houston would make sense, like we talked about with it won't be Stroud going there, and so if Carolina wrinkles it up, we could be in for quite a surprise. And so I like that. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, and had to touch on Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James real quick. So other than that, let's get into some running backs of this rookie class. We will start with none other than, everybody's future Hall of Famer already, Bijan Robinson. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Charles. Give us a breakdown on Bijan.
I mean, that's what I was going to start with. Obviously, consensus rookie running back 1 in the draft class, and probably the consensus fantasy running back 1 in the draft class, in my opinion. He does a great job of scanning the line of scrimmage. He doesn't let early penetration speed up his process when he's trying to find those holes. He's got great agility, elusiveness. He does consistently make defenders miss in tight and confined spaces. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He basically ran every route you would expect a running back to run. Swing passes, wheel routes. They ran him 30 yards downfield. Robinson basically has every skill set wanted in a modern NFL running back. And, everybody's heard it. He's probably the most intriguing running back prospect in like the past 10 years. To me, the main thing he's got to build upon when it comes to Bijan is running between the tackles with a little bit more power. He's great athleticism, solid in the passing game, good blocking, and he ran a 4.46 40. So he's got decent speed, but not the fastest either. So we'll have to see what happens. All around good running back.
So, Cubby, what are your thoughts there on him as a fantasy player? And, where obviously he's a big talk. There's a lot of teams interested in him. There's a lot of teams interested in the running back spot, but how high do you go? So where are you with where he goes in the draft, and then what that looks like, fantasy-wise as of now?
Bijan, man, I would love to see him in a place like Cincinnati, and have them completely cut ties with Joe Mixon. It would open up, a starting spot on a great offense. They also let P. Ryan walk. That's exactly what people are hoping for right now as they're drafting Bijan so early. they want him to go to a place that they'll give him a big role where he has a chance to score touchdowns. Obviously, in a Joe Burrow-led offense, there's going to be plenty of touchdowns. And, Mixon has those legal troubles anyway. I think they're leaning towards cutting him if they can upgrade in the draft. And I think that would be just a great spot for us to see him in. So
if he went to Cincinnati, Charles, what would you do, assuming Mixon's gone? Then what would you do at that position with Bijan? Because we know rookies don't always come in right away. May not be the same with Bijan, right? So for either one of you guys, what else would you do at the running back position as the Bengals, now that Piron's not there? And how would you facilitate that to kind of start the year?
I mean, if he goes into Cincy with Joe Mixon gone, I mean, you have to expect he's going to be the starting running back immediately, week 1, 100%. The only other place I had him going and nobody really wants to talk about it is Philly. And I think he fills the same role there. I mean, running back 1, week 1, let's go. I mean, I don't think he's a sit and learn kind of guy. He's not a rotational player. This is running back 1 on pretty much half the teams he could go to.
Yeah, and I think that the way that they are talking about filling the position, if Mixon does move on, they're talking about Travion Williams, a little bit about Chris Evans. I don't think either one of those guys can step in and fill that role if Mixon leaves. I do think a guy like Bijan steps in seamlessly and gets a ton of carries, a lot of volume on a great offense. It just makes a ton of sense to me. And moving on from Mixon seems like the right move at this point. I think they're done with him.
I love the moving on from Mixon. I just think that, as a rookie, if there's any bit of that learning curve, plus, as we talked about, you're going to have 2-3 running backs, and they can use those guys, like you said, Travion and Evans, as behind him. But my thought was just maybe like and it wouldn't be a Latavius Murray type, somebody that can come in, play on first and second down as well. Make sure you have something solid there on a team that's ready to win right now, because rookie running backs a lot of times do take some time to really learn those schemes. Bijan, although he's awesome, there's still probably a little bit of a learning curve. So I would just wonder if Cincy would just let him learn that with those guys behind him, or would they bring in kind of that veteran type to guarantee that they can still win ball games while he learns? So that was just kind of the way I was seeing it. But we will see. I mean, if Bijan goes there, obviously they're going to be making other moves. And Travion and Evans will get a chance to do that. But I love the idea of him there. I don't love the idea of Philadelphia just because of that team. So
it could happen. And the NFC East would shake in fear if he went to Philly, in my opinion.
I heard some talk about them possibly trading for Derrick Henry. What do you guys think of that before we move on?
So the other day, that was supposedly like the real deal and actually happening, but I kind of pulled away from it and haven't really looked. So as of now, is it a dead issue? Is it still happening? I got to be honest on that. I saw it, thought it was I couldn't believe it. Now I haven't heard anything, and I just haven't, been on baseball, basketball. You know how it is.
I think it's just one of them things that are on hold for the draft. You know what I mean? When the draft comes around, he might be traded during the draft. But Philadelphia makes a lot of sense. I think that's a pretty, a lot. I don't know if he'll keep the King Henry role that he had in Tennessee necessarily, because there's a lot of other playmakers in Philadelphia. But as far as like NFL, like team building is concerned, that would be pretty darn tough to stop. To have Derrick Henry in Philly.
That would turn Philly into an absolute monster. I mean, to me, more than even Bijan going there, because how do you game plan against that? How do you game plan?
I mean, if you have like Derrick Henry and Gainwell on the field together and you don't hand off, and then you throw it out to Gainwell when you're already having to combat Devontae, AJ, and Goddard, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and it's like if there's 2 running backs out there, you don't know that they're going to hand it off to Henry. And for Christ's sake, even when you know they're going to hand it off to Derrick Henry, it's Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, right.
It doesn't even matter. So, and I forgot Jalen Hurts knows how to use his feet. I mean, and then in the red zone, but I do think fantasy-wise, he pretty much is probably the same guy, maybe even a little less, because yes, Philly will be in the red zone a lot more, so he has touchdown upside. But Jalen Hurts, the other running backs, and the wide receivers score a lot of touchdowns. So I think that all the differences kind of make him the same. But yeah, NFL, you can get the worst version of Derrick Henry on this Eagles team and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great point.
If there's a team he can go to and suffer or, regress or all those things, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
So, well, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Bijan, the next Derrick Henry, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But on to number 2, we got a guy, I love the pass catching ability out of this kid, Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right. Well, we all know he came before he went to Alabama. He was on, I believe it was Georgia Tech. And in my opinion, he was probably the best player on the entire Georgia Tech roster before he came in to Alabama. And then he turned around and came into Alabama and won the starting job. Like you were saying, Evan, great, absolute, probably rare skill set as a receiver out of the backfield. He's one of those true pass catching hybrid running backs. He's good at evading pressure. He's good at jumping the cuts. Sorry, I lost my. Okay, good burst in the open field. He can run wheel routes, angle routes. He has a good understanding of space and how to create separation. He can move out to the wide receiver alignment, which makes him dangerous, especially for those teams that like to shift that running back out and use that kind of 5 wide receiver set, or even 4. He's dangerous. Let's see. To me, concern on him is going to be size. He's 200 pounds. He's a lighter back. He may need to be paired with a power runner. He's super fast, though, 4.36 40. I like him. I thought about this morning. I like him in Tampa. Tampa Bay, they don't have Fournette anymore. I think Gibbs could definitely step in there and fill that role and maybe even do a little bit more. So I think that's my landing spot for him, or somewhere that's pass heavy and that likes to use running backs in the passing game, maybe like New England.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think that he'd be paired well with a more hard-nosed type of runner. I would like to see him in a place like Kansas City. You mentioned pass heavy. Doesn't get more pass heavy than that. They are a team that, he'd be an excellent complement to Pacheco. They get their long-term Jerick McKinnon type of player in Gibbs. McKinnon, I think they may possibly be, interested in still re-signing him, but to my knowledge, they have not done that yet. So I think they're still searching for that player that they had in him. And I think Gibbs gives him the long-term answer in that spot. He's an excellent route runner, just as you said. He's got really good vision. I think his patience could improve some. Sometimes he's a little bit too eager to make the play. But he runs with decent power for his size, good contact balance, good ball security. He never got a lot of the short yardage work, but I think, again, that's Pacheco's job. So I could really see that being a great fit for him in KC.
I'm going to drop a name. I dropped this on your post, Charles, so you probably know what the name is going to be. But I think of a name like Austin Eckler when I look at Jahmyr Gibbs.
Absolutely.
Eckler learned how to be that guy. Let's not, forget. Nobody knew who Austin Eckler was. I could see, where are your thoughts on him landing with the Chargers?
I think that would be a really good fit. I think he may need to put on a few pounds in order to handle a big workload in the NFL. But I think he could do that.
They would have to. The Chargers need a first down back anyway, because Eckler's never been that guy, and he's losing more of that because he's getting a little bit older, and it's just not his skill set anyway. So, Gibbs would be kind of a year behind, or maybe they trade Eckler if they do that. I don't know, because he could play that pass catching role, but the Chargers would still need a running back, I think. And I kind of think that a little on Tampa. I don't know, Charles, Rachaad White's not the biggest guy. Do you think that they would be a good combination together? Because I see Pacheco is definitely that first down running back. God, no, please don't go to Kansas City. Zay Flowers or Jahmyr Gibbs, please, as a Charger fan, no Kansas City.
I could definitely see him kind of filling that first down back role for Eckler, because Eckler, we all know, and I think they could be a fantasy nightmare tandem. Yeah, I think it's a good fit. I mean, even if he were to be that first down running back, he wouldn't have to put on too much weight. Now, if like Cubby was saying, if he's going to be, if they expect him to be a 3-down guy, he's going to have to put on some weight. I think he was at 200 pounds. So
I guess with Rachaad White too would be a combo. They could both play a little first down, and you could interchange them just like Eckler. And honestly, I really want to see what Pacheco does in the passing game. I think we saw signs of that in the playoffs. If he adds that to his game, he's going to be extra scary. You see what he does with the ball. I know he's a second-year running back, but still, 7th-round pick last year. Guy is explosive. He starts getting 3 or 4 catches a game. I mean, you look at what that team does with, Jerick McKinnon, right? I mean, you can catch the ball in the backfield and you have Patrick Mahomes, you will have a good year there. I mean, I think all 3 of those teams provide a awesome running back combo that I would not want to face.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So where of those 3, I mean, probably the Chargers would be last. If it's Tampa or KC, does he thrive in one more than the other or get more of a role off the bat in one or the other? Possibly Tampa, knowing Andy Reid.
Yeah, I think he would get more of a role in Tampa off the start.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, Charles. When you brought it up, we were talking about it a little bit before we started the stream. And I thought it was a great fit, even better than the one I had, because, White hasn't really secured himself as the number 1 there yet. I think they want him to, but he hasn't really taken a hold of that job and shown like, hey, I'm good here for the next 5-10 years, guys. I think they want him to do that, but he hasn't done that yet. And there's more of that opportunity for him in Tampa Bay than there would be in either of those other 2 spots. I think Pacheco has a really solid hold on that early down role. And I don't think that there's any reason to take him out of that or try to find someone to coexist in that for him. I think he can do just fine in handling most of that for them. Whereas Tampa Bay, I think there's more of an opening for Gibbs to get early down work and third down work as well. So, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, like I said, Andy Reid is not one to just throw you in there. You've got to show that you know how to pass block, scheme, do the right things for that team. And talking about win now, I mean, who more than win now than Kansas City? So, they just don't need that. You still got Clyde Edwards-Helaire there, which is a very interesting unfold. Top pick, just a couple years ago. Fantasy god coming out, going for buku bucks in auction drafts. And, we have not seen him, and Andy Reid's quick to throw those guys and bring in whoever can get the job done. So free agent rookie, you got to know what you're doing there in Kansas City. I do want to bring this up real quick. I asked Manny who he liked outside of Bijan. Okay, we'll get into a Kane there. He's a little body, but I like the Warwick Dunn comparison there. So you want to switch a little off the list, Charles, and just get into him now? Can we do that?
Oh yeah, we can go to Kane.
Go to Devin.
Absolutely.
Let's get into Devin, and then we'll go back up to Charbonnet. But talking about a guy who may need to put on a little weight, but definitely can do so. But that work done, I like it. So what do you got, Charles?
All right. On Devin, he's got elite top speed and acceleration. He's very shifty. He's compact. Decent confident hands out of the back. Paired with the speed will make him elusive in the passing game, in my opinion, depending on where he goes and how they use him. So if you see him lined up with a linebacker, watch out. He's going to use that speed. Big playability depending on where he goes. Smaller back. He's 5'9", 188 pounds. In my opinion, he's not going to be your short power yards back. That's just not who he's going to be. Not ideal on passing downs. Defenders will win on one-on-one matches when it comes to blocking and pass protection. But super fast, 4.32, 40. Yeah, depending on how he's used, he could be real dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the issue with him is always going to be the size. I've talked about that before and how that alone will limit you in the kind of opportunities that these teams are going to give you anyways once you make it to the NFL. Kane, his skill set is very intriguing. It's super explosive. Um, he's the kind of player that's going to hit those home runs. And sure, you want those home runs, but what if they only come few and far between? It's not like he's going to score a touchdown, 40-yard touchdown every game. And if you're looking at a player who only gets a handful of touches a game because of his size, you're really going to be missing out. I mean, aside from the PPR points, you're not getting the short yardage. You're not getting the goal line work. That's something that he very rarely did in college. I don't think that he's ever going to be a workhorse or get that kind of role in the NFL. And that's something that's going to limit him in fantasy. Can he be useful? Absolutely. I think that he can be useful, but he's not somebody that you're going to trot out there every week with confidence and not worry about, well, is he going to get me 20 points today or am I going to get 6? I really think there's a lot of potential for him to, 4 or 5 catches a game, maybe 4 or 5 carries, maybe 6, 7, we're talking about 11, 12 touches as his ceiling probably in the NFL. That's not going to get it done every week in fantasy. So while I like Kane and I think he's a great player, plays well for his size, he's just not the kind of player that I'm going to be targeting a lot in fantasy. I'm excited for him in the NFL. I think he'll be a compliment to another back.
Where do you have him going, Cubby?
Yeah, I was just going to say, where did I have? So I have him going to the Seahawks. I think he's a perfect complement to Kenneth Walker. Doesn't have to do any of that power stuff. He's more of the pass catching back and doesn't have to do the short yardage. He can step right in and have a role year one. They got rid of Rashad Penny and Travis Homer, who's the latter. That's more of the role that he would fill anyway. He gives them someone that they could spell Walker with and do more of the pass game stuff. But again, I don't think you're ever going to see him get 20 touches a game, 15 even, which is really kind of what we're looking for. That's the bar that we want in fantasy. We want at least 15 to 20 touches a game for one of our feature backs in fantasy.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, 15 touches. What you look at last year, like the Cowboys, it was, can Tony Pollard and Zeke both continually touch the ball 15 times? If they do, Zeke is flex worthy and Pollard's probably RB2 with the pass catching upside. And you can do it in that offense. So I think where he goes, right? Like, again, if he went to a team like the Chiefs, any guy that has pass catching ability, the Chiefs might be the one team that you could start him more weeks than not. But in most cases, like you said, unless you're on a high-powered offense and you're getting 10 touches, you've got to be on a high-scoring team to even really want to play that in your flex at all. My other thing with Tim is I think he's a guy that, especially, in redraft, you can get really, really, really late because he doesn't pass block well yet. He throws his shoulders at guys. He hasn't learned that. And he can learn it quickly. But quickly in the NFL for a guy who doesn't know how to pass block, that's an 8-week learning curve, I think, at least. It's the second half of the year that most rookie running backs get their run. And I could see him being a guy that if you want to look for a guy that could be someone late during the year, new to the league, it's a Kane. You can get him very late. I like him as a sleeper. So if you're in a redraft league or even on your, dynasty, if he's starting to fall, look for that value deeper in the draft because later in the year, he's a guy that could come up. And if that role opens up for him, Cubby, to have 7 or 8 games and get 15 touches due to injury, due to maybe how he plays, who knows, right? I don't want to say he's a league winner, but that's how players become league winners.
Yeah, and you can't overstate that importance of that he's not really going to get the touchdowns. Touchdowns are super important for fantasy. And with a guy that's like 5'8" and under 190 pounds, if you're looking for him to be one of those generational guys. I think Warwick Dunn was brought up. I've heard Falk's name brought up. I like Kane a lot, but he's not either one of those guys. He's not like a generational type of prospect like those guys are.
If he fills out, if he puts on some of that weight and fills out, could he turn into a Warwick Dunn type player, or do you not think that that's just something he can't get to because of his makeup? I mean, is that level attainable?
I don't think so. Not with the 5'8" frame. It doesn't seem like a couple of the other, for instance, with Gibbs, I think that, he's 5'11". I think he's got a little bit of, extra length to put some weight on. With a guy that's 5'8", 190 pounds, you put 10, 20 extra pounds on, it's probably going to slow him down significantly.
It would take his speed away.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be the same player if he puts on weight. And I don't even know if he can put on weight with that body. That's something that I wouldn't bank on happening. So
I like that. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I can see him putting on the weight, but I do think, like you said, when you put on more weight, it can deteriorate that. But we'll see what team Manny brought up too. Which team drafts him will depend on touches. We talked about that. That's what I mean by fantasy wise, especially if he goes somewhere where that pass catching role is not available right away and it's later in the year. There may not be a lot of fantasy value year one.
Yeah.
But he could come second half of the season and be one of those rookie running backs that you see late in the year really help a team at the right time. So let's move on to I love this. Manny is very big on these guys putting on weight and still being great players. I think we're going to have a space or a time where we just touch on that and look at players that put on weight. We can really get into that, and this has been coming up too much. So we're going to put a pin in that, Manny. We love you and appreciate you as always, brother. JC dropping in too, my new favorite crew. Keep crushing it. Appreciate you guys, everybody watching. Again, we are the Sports Affiliation website there on the bottom. You can head to thesportsaffiliation.com. Check us out on YouTube, all over Twitter. Love and appreciate you all. Let's go to my boy out of UCLA here. Anything out of SoCal, I like. Zach Charbonnet, Charles.
Oh, man. I think he's an interesting prospect. He's got good vision, patience when he's behind the line to find the hole. He's definitely a power runner. This is not your speed guy. Best when he's able to hit the hole with a full head of steam. That's something I saw and I liked it. If he gets a full head of steam, he can be dangerous. Good balance. He's got good arm strength when it comes to breaking tackles. My concern, I don't have a whole lot of it on him, but my biggest concern is his breakaway speed. He ran a 4.53. Like, he's not that fast. And my only other thing, I think, he gets happy feet sometimes at the line of scrimmage. Which we all know in the NFL, if you get happy feet with some of these defenders, disaster can strike. We've got a lot of quick defenders when you talk about the likes of the Bosas and all of them. They're not going to let you have happy feet. They're just going to take you down behind the line of scrimmage. So I think he's got good prospects. I've actually got him going to the Saints. I think they could use a good, strong power back that's good at reading the holes. If he can work on that, getting the happy feet behind the line of scrimmage and get rid of that, I think he could be dangerous, especially in the red zone, trying to get into the end zone. Good prospect there.
Where do you have him going, Cubby, and what do you think?
I'm a fan of his, actually. I'd like to see him go somewhere like Tennessee after that Derrick Henry trade. If it does happens. We know the kind of volume they give to their feature back there. It's definitely a style fit. Outside of Hassan Haskins, they don't seem to have a player on the roster that's going to step right in and, fit that mold. I don't think that the team sees Haskins as their feature back either. To be fair, I'm not sure if teams view Zach as that either. But he could fill in that gap for like a year or two, something similar to what we're seeing with Allgeier right now in Atlanta. This way they don't have to spend a premium pick, on the position, and they still get the production that they're going to lack once they move on from Henry. Yeah. So I think Tennessee, Charbonnet, that would be a pretty good fit. Yeah.
Nice.
Even from an NFL perspective, even if they don't get rid of Henry and they were to go and get someone like Zach could learn a lot from Derrick Henry. Like you were saying, it's a similar play style, that bully running back. I think he could learn a lot and possibly really improve his skill.
Yeah, I think they're going to miss, obviously, some of that, once Derrick gets to the second level and just completely takes off, obviously they're going to miss that. But they will still have that guy that they can give the ball to 20 times a game and have them pound the defense, wear them down. That's Tennessee's game. That's what they like to do. I think he'd be an excellent fit there because he's a great finisher. So
he's a great finisher. And I think too, I love this kid. I think that he is explosive out of the backfield and not afraid of contact. I think that might help his second level speed. Yeah, we're going to have to see it. But I think with his power ability to explode, hit that first level, take the contact, I think that is what propels, there is only one Derrick Henry, but that's what propels Derrick Henry into that second level. I think that Charbonnet can use some of that power and off the contact to speed up into that second level, not because he's fast, but because of the way he plays. He creates that lane, makes it look like he's faster than he really is. And once he gets that downhill, he is tough and he has soft hands. He can catch the ball if you want him to. He really does have a 3-down makeup if you want. He's not your 100 pass catcher guy, but he is 50, 60 plus catches as well. So you have to account for him in the passing game while being a bruiser, something you don't have to do with Derrick Henry. And I'll never take away from Derrick Henry, but he doesn't catch passes. I love this kid wherever he goes, and I wouldn't be mad if he went to the Chargers either, because I'd love to see the Chargers keep Eckler for a few more years. I'd rather get a bruiser like this kid and pair him up with that. This kid's going to eat, though. Yeah, this kid's going to eat. He's going to get goal line touches. I think he didn't get as much at UCLA with whatever was going on there, but the talent is there. He might be. I'm not saying – I know it's all Bijan. This might be the best running back in the draft.
Yeah. And you said it. I love his acceleration, his burst. Once he sees it open up, his burst is awesome. He just, boom, turns on the jets and goes. And he doesn't have the long speed like Charles was saying. But that burst, man, that burst through the hole and the power that accompanies him when he turns on the jets, man, it's tough to stop. And in Tennessee, that's a perfect fit for him. I really hope we see that. That would be awesome.
To make up with that lack of speed, so to speak, like I was saying, he does have really good balance. And he has really good arm strength to shove off tackles. So,
Yep.
And I really like the Chargers look, Evan. I know that would be like dream scenario for you, get the guy you like on your team, but I like that. Pair him up with Eckler and they could do some damage. I like it.
They've just got, it opens up. They haven't had that bruising running back to open up the passing game, and they've still been effective. And I think those still will be effective. I love Kellen Moore there with Herbert, that offensive line, the weapons they have. But you add in that extra dynamic with the real bruiser, just makes the combination of Eckler and that offense insanely different.
He's also a very good pass blocker too. So you won't hate him there either. So
and they have a good line. No, I would love that. So let's move on to TCU man here, Kendre Miller.
I like Miller. Personally, he's one of mine that I favor. He's real patient. One of the things I like about him, and I saw somebody else say this, so I was like, I have to write this down. He allows his offensive linemen to execute the blocking scheme and defenders to choose their gaps before he's hitting the hole. And he has good balance once he hits that hole to evade defenders. He bounces off defenders quite often to get more yardage. He does seems to lack true breakaway speed, but I think it's similar to Charbonnet. I think he's going to be that good bully back, or he has the potential to be. He's definitely a true in between the tackles kind of back. You're not going to see him excel at a lot of outside runs. He's definitely inside the tackle kind of guy. And I had him going to Seattle. I think he fits that role. I think he's going to be more of a rotational back, but I think he would excel there.
Yeah, I really like. I think he's got a very, another guy who doesn't have the greatest long speed, but again has elite burst, and he finds small creases and shoots right through them. He is a in between the tackles runner. Somebody that I think would fit great on the Rams. I don't think that McVay is very sold on Akers. They tried to get rid of him last year. He was buried on the depth chart for some odd reason for a little while. But even if they do end up keeping Akers, I think he gives them a great compliment because he does work in the pass game that Akers really just isn't capable of doing. I think that if he goes there, he has a role year one, and possibly the whole role, that the most of it by year two. So,
do you think that the Kyren window in I was going to say St. Louis in LA for the Rams is it happens, when you get old and they change teams, man, it's too much going on up here. But for the Rams, I mean, McVay going into last year talked about loving Kyren, being a guy, being a pass catching guy, being explosive. Never really got to see it all year. And even when they went away from Akers, you didn't really see it with Kyren. They kind of even started using now I'm drawing a blank on the guy they were bringing in, but a third string, nobody basically. So is Kyren do you think there's a world where Kyren becomes the guy this year out of nowhere? Or do you think they've moved on from that?
Yeah, I don't think that. I think Kyren is a complimentary piece at best. He's another guy who just doesn't have the size. And it's not so much that these guys can't do it. It's just that NFL teams do not put them in those positions. They don't run a guy who's 5'9", struggling to make 200 pounds. They just don't give those guys a workhorse role. Typically, you have to be a really special player to get that kind of role at that size in the NFL. And I don't
see Kyren as that workhorse either. I just see him as a skill set that could be used more than they're using, though. I think he's an explosive player as the complementary. And so, I mean, some kind of role. But again, running backs are just dime a dozen in the NFL. And if you can find somebody who's a little bit better at something else for your team, these guys will get thrown around and put through the ringer. I mean, why wouldn't Carolina want Foreman back after the year he gave them to be that same role? It just doesn't fit what they're trying to do. It's really it's not Foreman, right? He earned a job and he got a job, but the NFL looks at it way different than obviously we do, right? And they use a million running backs now, so they don't. But back to Miller, my only concern for him, I think, is the pass blocking. His pass block and run block are a little susceptible, especially in the passing game. And again, if you can't fix that part of your game, it doesn't matter. You won't get on the field in the NFL because just like how you were saying, Cubby, they won't run running backs like that. Guys won't put running backs that can't pass block. You will get your chance. You'll get taken out and you won't go back in. I think that could be an issue for him. But if he gets that right and finds himself on the field 60+% of the time, yeah, he's just got the makeup of getting that volume. He's a guy that can get the volume that we talked about, see those 15 touches. So little concern on the pass block for him.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think that he can improve his pass blocking. He's definitely got the body for it. But at this point, it is a concern, and it is something that could keep him off the field. I always worry about that. It's not something that scores us fantasy points, but pass blocking will keep your running back off the field if they can't do it, and you got to be on the field to score fantasy points.
It will prevent you from the opportunity to score fantasy points. Volume, 100%. volume. Opportunities equal volume. And again, this is a guy, and as we get down this list too, I really wanted to stress this to the fantasy, audience, which is most of everybody, I'm sure, second half of the season. If he learns to pass block, that's when he's going to come and make a difference. So if you do take him late, monitor that. Don't jump ship too soon on these rookie running backs before the second half of the season. That's what I'm going to continue to preach on that. Rookie running backs get run in the second half of the year, especially the ones that need to learn how to pass block. These guys can be those players, and if they get that chance towards the end of the year, we see every year running backs and rankings, people come out of nowhere. So there's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that we didn't expect. A few of them will be rookies like Isaiah Pacheco. So keep that in mind with all the fantasy stuff. But let's move on to Zach Evans, Ole Miss man.
The Ole Miss man actually came. I think he transferred from TCU to Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right.
To me, Zach Evans, this is your what I would call almost the definition for a zone running back. He's excels in zone running plays. Overall, he's a well-rounded player. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. He's got good burst, good acceleration. He has shown that he can run power and physically. He has big play potential. My issue with him is his lack of experience in the passing game compared to other prospects that we've even talked about so far. And he's not strong in pass protection from what I've seen, which we all know in today's NFL, that can be a huge problem. You have to be able to excel. We were talking about that earlier. So Kyle, you mentioned that you have to be able to excel in both the passing and the running game and blocking and catching the ball in today's NFL in order to succeed. And there's a lot of questions there with the pass game with him.
Love it.
Yeah, I think he's another guy who has some questions in that pass protection department, but another guy who has the foundation to improve. And I don't think he was terrible at it. He's just inconsistent. I think there's some film of him where he's putting on some really nice blocks, and then where he's just doesn't look NFL competent at all. So where did I have him? The Cardinals. Now you mentioned, I think he is his own, runner, but I don't think he couldn't work in a gap scheme. But I do think it's about time that the Cardinals start worrying more about life after James Conner. Evans has that all-around skill set, and I think he could slowly take over the main role from Conner, seize control by next year. They'll probably have to pair him with a passing game specialist in the future because I think that's an area where he's serviceable but not great. And we already talked about the pass protection issues. But in terms of the majorities of carries in an offense and the early down work, that is right up Evans' alley. And the fit and earning the trust, it's not something that he has to do right away with Conner there. I think we're going to see one more year of Conner being the guy. And Evans can kind of slowly work his way in. I think the Cardinals would be a good fit for him. I don't see any team giving him the workhorse role out the gate anyway. So a place where there's an established starter that doesn't have, a hold on that job for the foreseeable, for the future. I think that him and Conner is a good pairing. So
I had him going to Dallas.
Okay. I like
pairing
that.
with Pollard.
Yeah. I like that.
Which would give him probably a better chance at succeeding, sooner because of Dallas's offensive line and state as a team. But again, brings us back to, is he at a place experience-wise where Dallas would want to use him if he can't be on the field, to pass block? And that's where we're going to be at with most of these guys, right? Is can they do enough to get on the field combined with the situation? And a guy like him, if he's doing the right things and he's in Dallas, yeah, watch out. He could start producing. If he's kind of doing the right things and not, and on Arizona, I mean, you just flip the table. You flip the script on what you think of him at that point just because of those things. So we're going to get a better idea of that here soon, which will be nice. So let's keep it rolling a little bit. Let's go to Sean Tucker.
All right, the Syracuse man. I've got him. He's got good breakaway speed, good acceleration, really good acceleration. I marked him down. He's a home run threat. He's got good footwork, good balance to pair with it. One of the things I like about him, and it's something that they teach kids when they play football, he never stops moving his feet. He's got good ball security. Concerns for me, again, are probably going to be in the passing world. He needs a little bit of work on blocking and understanding how the defense is bringing pressure and where to be. He needs some more consistency catching the ball. He has lots of body catches and drops. That's what I've got on him, and I have him going to Cleveland.
That's a good fit. I like his vision. He's got underrated power. He can lower his head and finish. He's able to push the pile. He's got decent contact balance. But you hit the nail on the head. The thing about him is his elite burst. He's got great home run long speed, and his burst is amazing. He's very elusive also in the open field. Good agility and lateral movement. The other thing that you mentioned that's really important, though, is he did drop almost 14% of his career passes. That's a high number. And most of his catches came on screens. So it's manufactured work in the pass game, mostly with Tucker. As much as I love him, he's got to go to a team that doesn't necessarily use their backs in that way. I think the Miami Dolphins would be an excellent fit. It would be absurd in the Shanahan style run game. He's just a perfect fit. He can hit the hole and turn on the jets and just take off. That offense would be scary good with another piece like him added to it. And obviously they need help in the running back room. So I really like Tucker in Miami.
I like that. Yeah, Jeff Wilson there, right, doing the pass catching. I mean, he fits the system. I will say that, it's going to be that in between the tackles. He is better than what shows, but he also does have kind of a thin frame. NFL's faster. So, yeah, I think the key for him is, can he hit those holes without the happy feet, be decisive, which comes with time and learning, and be above average in between the tackles. If he does that, he's going to find his way on the field and then get to be used in what he really does well, and that's the area for me. The in between the tackles, does he go down in the NFL, or does he find a way to improve and be better in that area?
For that matter, Cubby, you mentioned the Shanahan style offense. Why not San Francisco? I mean, we all know the injury history with San Francisco, and he hits me as one of those. I don't know if he's quite as fast, but he hits me as one of those Raheem Mostert style players with that really good burst and that home run threat ability. And he could go in and learn behind McCaffrey and even Elijah Mitchell and get some qualities that he needs some help on. That would be a good fit too if he were to fall wherever he falls.
Yeah. If you're good with McDaniel, you're good with Shanahan, probably based on the tree, right?
100%.
So, little different passing game with the weapons, but as far as the minds go, I mean, and those two guys, Shanahan and McDaniel together, what a duo of NFL intelligence. I mean, my goodness, and entertaining. But let's go and move on to the Tank Bigsby.
Ooh, the Auburn man.
Such a deep class, such a deep running back class.
It really is. It's a pretty decent year for them, in my opinion. Maybe not the best, but it's a decent year. Bigsby's got real strong presence in the red zone, in my opinion. We all know, or if you've looked at it, he had 25 touchdowns in 3 seasons, which it's pretty strong. He's a really good north-south runner, straight up. He does fall forward to finish runs. We all know that equals more yards in the NFL. They teach him you want to go forward, you don't want to go back. He keeps his feet moving through contact, good with arm tackles, good explosiveness through cuts, which he's very good at hitting those cuts on time. He's solid at reading the D-line for holes. We don't know a whole lot about his true pass-catching ability just because of the way Auburn runs their offense, in my opinion. He didn't get as many chances as some to showcase that ability, but he is good in multiple schemes. He has the NFL build. He's 6 foot, 210 pounds. It's still not the fastest. Seems to be a thing in this class. He had a 4.6 40, so not the fastest, but that can be developed. He's still got that good build. So I like him. I think he can easily go into somewhere like Atlanta and be a red zone threat.
Yeah, that's a good spot for him. I think that this class is very indicative of what we're seeing in the NFL nowadays anyway. We have a lot of players that aren't necessarily fit for a bell cow role, but they can fill roles on an offense. and Tank is definitely one of them guys. I feel like his, he runs very hard, obviously. But he makes his living after contact. You know that he's got 4.16 yards after contact per PFF. That's pretty good. He could be a little more secure with the football. And you mentioned he's got the average long speed, but he's got really good burst. When he sees it open up, he hits the hole hard and he hits it with a lot of power. I think he'd be a really good short yardage specialist. I would love to see him go to the Giants. I know they need to add something there other than Barkley. And Barkley, as much as he's great at everything that he does well, one thing that he is not is a short yardage, push the pile type of grinder. He can do it, but to keep him healthy and doing the things that he's best at, I think this is a great fit. You bring in a guy like Tank, his name indicates exactly what he's good at. You give the ball to him, short yardage situations, just let him smash his way to first downs and touchdowns. It's a great fit. I mean, if we don't, we won't see Barkley lose so much of his role in, as he is the workhorse. We just bring in Tank to kind of preserve him for the long season, let Tank take on them big hits. That's what he does anyway. I just think it's a really great fit. Reduces Barkley's injury risk going forward and fills a need for the team.
I like that.
Yeah, I like both those. I mean, both complementary places that his game would fit and what those teams currently have in place. So I love that you have two different teams, but both fit kind of the analysis and what role he can fill. So both those two teams are great spots. Let's keep going. Let's move on to Tyjae Spears.
The first thing I had wrote down, he's explosive, easy acceleration. He's got good breakaway speed. He's good in both zone and gap runs. He's comfortable. I can't talk today. Functioning in either concept. He makes it difficult for opponents to square up on him, which is a very good trait. Narrow build does limit his appeal as a workhorse, like many of the other ones we've been talking about. I think he's going to be more of a complementary piece at the next level, but he does have the speed, the quickness, the agility. He can hit any kind of gap zone. Definitely a competitive running style. Good. Let's see. I think he lacks a little bit of vision and ball security, needs a little bit better balance, but those can be developed. So he definitely has some good potential there. I have him going to Indy.
Nice. I'm a big fan of Spears. I think he's very decisive. He's another guy who's able to squeeze through very tight spaces. He had 21 touchdowns last year, tied for most in the country with, I think it was Izzy Abanikanda. He did take a lot of direct snaps, and his ball security needs improving, but he's got that home run long speed, elite burst, good lateral movement ability. He's elusive, shifty. He is a high effort blocker. He gets under people's pads, gets some pop. I think he can improve there. He's a good receiving back, very good hands, catches the ball away from his body, secures the ball before running, and got a very fluid transition after the catch to run. Now, he did have the torn ACL as a freshman, so there's a bit of a durability concern. I'd like to see him go to the Falcons. They already have Al Geyer there, who can do the short yardage and the pounding stuff. I think he complements his game extremely well. You give them a more explosive option in the run game. Someone who takes over the third down duties immediately and may steal early down work as well, as he proves to be more efficient in his touches. And plus, I don't think they have to burn an early round pick to get him. I know there's some talk about them doing that with Bijan, and I'd absolutely hate that. They would be better served to fill some more, other needs with that early first round pick and go ahead and get a player like Spears, maybe in the third round, something like that would be a better idea, in my opinion.
I wonder if Spears will be there in the third round. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there may be some teams willing to move a little bit because the fact that, you brought up the bell cow back, and he can he could be that player. He does have a little bit of the frame. He still has to kind of work on some of that, but this guy has the skill set to do it all and then be used in like even a Debo Samuel, like end around, utilize his speed, get him out in space. He can run the ball, but he is ready for that third down complimentary back like right away. And a lot of that is, I love it, high effort blocker. He's not the greatest, but if there's a guy in this class that's willing to block, it's him.
Absolutely.
It is him. And that alone is a big deal because that means he is willing to learn and willing to be teachable. And his skill set's so good. Complimentary place like Atlanta, like you said, he could get a little bit of early down work where they can start to integrate him into that without relying on it while exercising his strength on third down and using Tyler. Personally, I don't want too much work there. I've got a lot of shares in Tyler. But that's an individual selfish reason. But yeah, I love the Atlanta fit there too. Both those last two picks. So good stuff there, guys. We've got two more because one not on our list. So let's go who you just mentioned, Izzy or Israel Abanaconda. Sounds like Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I'm just going to call him Izzy. Man, good size. Impressed by the amount of burst and speed that he has. Definitely got a lot of explosiveness to run off the tackle and gain chunk plays. Now, one of the downsides on him is navigating the more congested boxes when you have a lot of players in the box. Hasn't been a strength to this point for him, but he is a willing pass blocker. He will scan and step forward. He's willing, but his strength hasn't been overly stout when he's actually absorbing the contact. But big thing for him, this guy's 20 years old and about to go into NFL. I actually, similar to what one of y'all were saying with Arizona earlier and pairing him with James Conner and maybe even, depending on how he turns out, letting him take over. I have Izzy going Arizona. I think he fits that big build. He's got a lot of burst and speed. He's explosive. He's young. He can learn. Yeah, that's my fit for him.
Yeah, I like that fit a lot. I actually had him in Tampa Bay, but I might like that fit even more. My thinking with Tampa Bay was he just complements White a little bit, pretty well. White can still handle the pass catching stuff. But Izzy dropped 12% of his passes last year. That's not going to get it done in the NFL. And because of that, I don't think that he's going to be trusted with a receiving role right off the rip. So pairing him with a guy like White, I thought would be a pretty good idea. But yeah, I like your fit too, Charles. That's a good one.
I think there might be a little learning curve for him, but
yeah.
He does have, that little bit of added weight. He's not too, he's still just right above 5'9", but he's got the extra 215 on him. I think he provides a good mix in an all-around aspect, which,
Right.
Probably limits that bell cow. But again, it kind of brings us back to where does he go and how many touches does he get? How is he being used as far as fantasy goes? Is he someone that you can rely on? Probably going to be a wait and see kind of guy, especially depending where he goes on Thursday. So let's go. I know we're going to go one more. What do you got for me, Cubby, on Chase Brown? And then we'll get into some receivers.
I like his vision. I like his contact balance. I think that he needs to learn to become a better finisher. He's only 5'9", but he's 215 pounds. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to lower his head and finish stronger than he does. Ball security needs to improve also. He does have that home run long speed, really good burst. He's another guy who gives good effort in the pass blocking game. He struggles to anchor, though, against players, that are bigger than him. So it's not something that he's going to be great at right away. He does show tools to become a good route runner, has some speed variation and some suddenness to his routes, and plenty of experience lining up out wide. I think his hands leave a little bit to be desired. He's got some technique issues he could clean up that will improve in that area immediately. Let's see. Yeah, and Chase, we didn't really have him apparently on the list. So I don't know, about any good comps for him. You got a good comp, Charles?
You want to be honest? Mostert.
Yeah.
He's a perimeter guy. That was my main thing on him when I was looking him up a while ago. He's a perimeter guy. Sometimes to the extent where it can be a concern because he will trade those straight up the middle hard yardage for bouncing out to the perimeter and not getting that much. So he's got a lot to learn, but there's definitely some promising qualities there. He's got the speed. Definitely needs a little bit more power. And I agree with you, Cubby. I think he could hit stronger than he does. But we'll have to see how that turns out in the NFL. He is quick. He's got a 4.43 40. So he's quick. So
he's a guy that, as I've watched a little bit, I just wanted to, and after TD had brought him up, I looked into him and was very fascinated just by his game and his skill set. So wanted to make sure we at least brought him up, see where he lands. Same frame, same size as, Abanaconda, fits they're the same size player. I think that, if you try to bounce off to the edge in the NFL, that's not a good thing to do because the defense is way too fast. So like most of these guys, a little learning curve, but a name to watch out for. Someone I think could rise up this list a little. Let's move over to receivers and run through some of these. I'm going to start at the bottom, Charles, if that's cool.
Works for me.
We'll go the other way and run through. So let's start. We have 10 guys on this list. We're going to start with wide receiver Cedric Tillman.
Ooh, I actually do not have him.
Hey, did I not have him on the wrong list? Okay, let's move on. Let's just start at the top with Jackson Smith and Jigba and make it easy.
Okay. Let's see. I actually have him going to Houston. Wanted to point that out at the starting. My biggest concern for him, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people, is injuries. Injured, didn't play very much last season, but 2021, this is where the upside looks at. 1,606 yards, Big Ten receiving record, outstanding route runner, good separating. He's got really deceptive footwork. I like that about him. He can make a lot of guys miss. Good body control. Let's see. He does make good adjustments on the fly. Run to open space. Yeah, he was a pretty good solid target in open space for C.J. Stroud in 21. He's got really good spatial awareness, good hands, ball skills, focus. My big thing for him, same with a lot of running backs, is he lacks the top end speed that some of these other wide receivers have. But he does compensate for that. He uses a lot of technique to get and stay open. 6'9", 196 pounds, about what you would expect. It's going to be interesting. Durability is probably my main concern with him, to see how that translates into the NFL. So we'll see, and it depends on where he goes. I think he's going to go to Houston and be a target there.
Yeah, I love that. I had the same fit for him. I love the Texans. They have the 12th overall pick. They need to secure their wide receiver one of the future. JSN's an excellent fit. He should be there at 12. Gives that incoming quarterback, whether it's a rookie, journeyman, who knows what they're doing at this point. Or whether they stick with Mills, which would be a nightmare. But he gives the quarterback a reliable target and someone to build chemistry with, especially if it's a rookie coming in. He's got his guy to build that chemistry with for the next 10 years. I love the Texans. They don't have a lot of people competing with him for targets there. It's a place where he could step in and have a big role year one. I agree with Charles. The biggest knock on him is going to be the injury history. I am not very concerned about the speed, the way that he moves around, his short area quickness. It's not too much. He doesn't need to be a burner. That's not typical. That's not really what he does. So the speed doesn't concern me so much. The injuries are something that obviously could keep him off the field, and that's my main concern.
Love it, love it. So Rico here, we got, if the Texans don't draft a quarterback, then JSN won't matter too much in the grand scheme unless they get a vet, which I think kind of makes me think like Kyle Pitts of last year, 100+ targets, but they were terrible targets.
Right.
It's like, and so I think that's exactly what Rico's saying right there. And that's definitely what you don't want to see. That
Absolutely.
would be what hurts him. But if they do have a quarterback, I think with him, and then it will benefit Schultz too. If they have a quarterback in place, him and Schultz together with a quarterback that knows what they're doing, at least you've got some continual offense with guys that can, move the chains. Is he your first receiver off the board out of rookies in a fantasy draft, Cubby?
Yeah, 100%. It's not even close. Yeah.
See, that's what makes me sad about the whole Houston situation with CJ Stroud. Imagine them two going to Houston. They've already got that rapport. It would be insane. I mean, it's connection right off the back week one, but we all know how that's looking like it's going to turn out. Looks like they're not going to take CJ. So,
yeah, I feel like this is a major, example of a situation where people are overthinking it too much. JSN is the best wide receiver prospect we've had coming out in some time. As I said, injuries are the only thing that's going to sap his production. He's going to be great no matter where he ends up. That's my prediction.
Until his teammate comes out next year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Harrison Jr. They're just churning them out of that university, aren't they?
Oh, man.
Couple years of greatness, and then you get Marvin Harrison Jr. Goodness gracious, man, they're doing it. So, yeah, but Stroud and JSN would definitely be nice. I mean, we get to see that, with Burrow and Chase, and so it'd be kind of cool to see that dynamic continue. But so number one consensus, I agree. I think you have to take him number one, Cubby, as well. Let's move on to Jordan Addison, who, to me, I think some people are really high and others aren't so high. So what do you got, Charles?
The USC man. To me, separation is my big thing with Jordan Addison. I love it. He does separate consistently and on all levels. He's really good on release. Does works at the top of routes. He's definitely a high volume target. We have all seen that. He's got really good spatial awareness and body control, which is a must in the NFL to succeed. Not the fastest. He ran a 4.49. And my biggest concern with Addison is when he was at Pitt. He had a lot of drops at Pitt. It did reduce once he went to USC. But that's always going to be a big concern of mine with receivers. If you're dropping passes, and we all know these NFL quarterbacks, they're not lobbing it to you. It's coming. So you can't drop those easy passes. But I have him going to Minnesota.
Very nice.
Nice. I mean, he is a slot guy, which would, be a nice replacement there for Minnesota. I know, Cubby, you're probably going to mention the drops as well. My other concern, and I'll ask you this question to lead into you, he hasn't seen a lot of press man coverage up tight either, and he's not the biggest receiver. Does the physicality of that bother you to how much he's on the field?
I do have that down here. That's something that is concerning. As much as I love his route running, he's an amazing route runner, cuts at almost a right angle, has speed variation to his routes. He's really good in that sense, but he can get knocked off of his routes by bigger players because he doesn't have a lot of weight behind him and strength behind him. So with more physical corners and DBs, they can give him trouble. And that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Let's see.
That's another one of those big things while you're looking that up, Cubby, that factors into when we always say it matters a lot where they go.
Yes.
Because he does have the ability to create that separation. I think he can still create it in that man, but it's going to throw him off his route. Do you have a quarterback that can adapt to that and make that throw based off of what he's doing? If you don't, it could turn out really bad. And you could start throwing a lot of picks.
Yeah, I was just looking it up, but I have him going to Tennessee. And one of the reasons is because you pair him with a guy like Burks, who's a bigger guy, a stronger guy, and Addison is a much better route runner. I just like the way that those two games fit together. Burks is more of the player you design touches for or throw it up to. Addison is the better route runner and separator of the two. I think that's a great fit. So
You could definitely run some cool two-man combos with them and try to get some mismatches on the opposing players, create a switch, really kind of, and that's a way to offset some of those coverages and blocking things too, is a little bit more creative and gimmicky. And we're seeing that in the league a lot anyway. So to get these guys to be utilized in their strengths, take him off of really having to deal with that and find a way to cross, and get him out in space. And then once he gets the ball, my goodness. And so that falls on the teams too, right? Like if you're going to take him, you have to know that and know what kind of offense. So who is your quarterback, and do they fit well? And that's what happens and that's what we're going to see in the draft, right? Is guys may not go, and then because teams don't need that fit, they fall farther, not because they're not talented, but because they don't fit that team's role. So let's move on to Quentin Johnston, who I would say, because I have one for this, I look at Mike Williams when I see this man.
Man, Quentin Johnston, he is what you think of when you think of big wide receiver. I mean, 6'4", 212 pounds. I don't know if any of y'all saw this, but with an estimated 4.3 40-yard dash time. A 4.3 at 6'4" and 212 pounds.
Yeah, and the wingspan.
Yes, absolutely. My concern isn't really much of a concern after we've seen how the 2022 season went, but most of Johnston's career at TCU was stagnant. I saw that put in several different articles, and just from what I seen in play previous to last year, is it was stagnant. He's got all this crazy athletic ability and potential, but until 2022, it wasn't really used. Last year, he did have the career high receptions, 60 receptions, 1,000 yards or 1,069 yards, 6 touchdowns. He catches the ball. He becomes a difficult tackle for defenders. Obviously, he's 6'4" and crazy fast and is 212 pounds. When he faces, though, press man, he does allow defensive backs to get in his chest a lot in press man, and they have a better opportunity of slowing him down off the line of scrimmage, which obviously it makes it more difficult for him to release into his route. So that's my concern there is press man for him, and you're going to have a lot of NFL defenses that are going to run press man on him just because of who he is and what he can do and his ability. They're going to try to slow him down at the line of scrimmage so he can't get open. A lot of potential there, though, and crazy fast.
Yeah.
Where do you have him going, Charles?
Go.
Let's see. Green Bay.
Nice.
I mean, solid big target for Jordan Love.
I love his size, man. He's like the typical X receiver type build, but he just doesn't really like play that way. So that's the weird thing about him. Like, where does he play? He's got awesome speed variation ability. He can go up and high point it and get it, but it's not something that like is a strength. It's not something that he consistently does or does well. I feel like obviously with his build, if he can perfect that a little bit, get better at that would suit his game so much more, because you want to take advantage of that size that he has. It's great that he's 6'4", over 200 pounds, but if he can't go, if he can't do that consistent, well, I'm going to throw it up, you just go up there and grab it, then how useful is he in the red zone? Those are the kinds of things that we, with a 6'4" wide receiver, that's something that they typically bank on, and you want that for him. I had him going to the Giants. I feel like they are looking for their, alpha wide receiver, the one who will get the ball a lot. Johnson gives them the great size, which is something they don't have a lot of outside of Hodgins. But he also brings incredible athleticism. He, fits well with Dable's offense because of that. I think he'll be able to draw plenty of plays to get involved year one, and he can perfect that part of his game that we're kind of not seeing so much right now. Yeah, I think the Giants are a good fit for him. What do you guys think?
I like it. Do you think I do like that fit? Do you think, Cubby, he could be developed into more of like a Dez Bryant, DK Metcalf style big-bodied receiver that goes up and gets it, or is it really just depend on where he goes.
I don't know if you necessarily need him to be that all the time. It's just something that like you want to see more of because of his size. It's something that you want to add to his arsenal, not become the main thing that he does necessarily, but just something else that he can do, because it's a part of his game that he's not very consistent with right now. And it's not something that they can just go out there and rely on him to do. But if he can develop that part of his game, I don't, like I said, I don't think it needs to be the main thing that he does, but just something that he can add to that, something that he can do on the field other than what he's already doing. Because when you get him out there in space, he's a load, man. He's so athletic and big and tough to bring down. And, if you add that to that guy's game, he's a complete wide receiver and alpha wide receiver 1, which is something that we'll be drafting in fantasy for years to come. So
he's got the athletic makeup to do all those things. And like you said in the beginning of your analysis, Cubby, he's just like not really doing them though, which is weird for his characteristics and traits, but it also gives you he is built this way though. So we can use that. And like I said, the Mike Williams, the ability on the outside to go up and get the ball, to run deep downfield, to have a bigger wingspan than Mike Williams as well by a couple inches. You know what that can do to a defense and shred a team if you have a guy like Keenan Allen, per se, right, who's doing the middle of the field. But if this kid with his size can learn how to play in zone coverage and learn how to get physical and go across the middle and add that too, and then be that threat where there's no matchup against him deep down the field, and then be healthy. We see what Mike Williams does when he's healthy. He's a top producer. Seems like he never plays like more than really half the year. But when he does, he's dominating. And hopefully this, there's not going to be an injury, riddled career that we've started to kind of see with Williams for this guy. And if he can develop that, man, yeah, I like it. He's already got the skill set to score you points fantasy and provide in the NFL. But he's got a lot of upside to turn into, like you said, a DK, get the red zone targets, get the middle targets, also get the deep targets. I mean, that's what DK's turned into. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I mean, if you put that on the Giants, I mean, my goodness, you turn into a possession receiver, you turn into a deep threat. I think any team he goes to, he provides an initial deep threat. JC dropped a comment right there. He loves it. Add to Danny Dimes' bag, baby. This next guy I really like, I mentioned him earlier, Zay Flowers.
Ooh, Zay Flowers, man. He is another one of those prospects that you're either really high on him or you're really low on him. To me, he is more of that Tyler Lockett style player. So I have him comp to. He does have a really good ability to track the football while it's in the air, which is really good, despite because he does have a really small frame. He's very competitive at the catch point compared to other receivers of his size and stature. He doesn't have a really big catch radius, though, along with that frame. I think this is going to end up limiting the opportunities that most NFL quarterbacks will give him in regards to trusting him to catch the football. He's 5'9", 182 pounds. My biggest concern is that 11% drop rate. He's good in space, not so much in man. Decently fast 4.42. Like I said, I compared him to Tyler Lockett. I think he's got a lot to learn and build upon. And like I said, biggest concern is going to be is that drop rate.
Yeah, I think that drop rate is very closely linked to some technical issues that he has catching the football. It's something that he can correct,
Yes.
but it may take some time for him to do so. But he is an excellent route runner. I love his feet. He's got a bunch of creative releases. He's outstanding after the catch too. I had him pegged for the Panthers. They need their wide receiver one of the futures. I think Flowers can play right away for them in the slot as he fixed some of his issues catching the football. He can grow into their first option. They have Shark and Thielen there to kind of bridge the gap, play different roles while he settles into that. Yeah, what do you think?
I like the call. I am surprised. I think that I love Zay, but I think as a number one, that work that you guys mentioned is a little farther away than what we see. And I think he needs to go to a team, especially for like fantasy value. He needs to go to a team that he's going to get to play right away, like the Powder Blues that Rico mentioned. And I, of course, as a Charger fan, love Zay too, because you have Keenan and Mike Williams. His initial skill set of the deep threat just plays right into that. And you give him a lot more time to see if he can turn into that alpha. I don't know if I can have my number one not be 6'2". But as that second guy, and do I think his game's going to translate? I think a lot of it is gut, right? We have the guys we like. I think that on the right team, like the Chargers or even like the Chiefs, I don't want to say that, that skill set can be put to use right away. And like I said, he can turn into that player. So I like him a lot, though. I really do.
I actually had him going to one of three, and it was almost all the ones that we've mentioned. I had him either going to the Chargers, to KC. We all seen the video where they had Patrick Mahomes throwing with him. I mean, they don't just put anybody out there with Pat Mahomes. They think they've got some lock in there. So the other team that I think would be interesting to see him on is Buffalo.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
My response to that would just be like, I'm kind of like, I've seen Gabe Davis be this streaky, inconsistent, deep threat or almost no threat. And complementing that with what Zay's good at off the bat, I don't know if that's a great fit. But if you can get Zay there and do some of what the creativity that Cubby said, and then get him up, kind of out in the open in space mixed with what they do. And that just goes back to, like you said, if you can utilize him on your team and what you do well, I could see that. But I feel like him and Gabe Davis could kind of neutralize each other and then hurt that offense.
That's true. And that's why it was the last one I put on there. I would like to see with like he was saying, with the creative, I think it's more likely, I hate to say it, but I think it's more likely he's going to go KC.
Okay, so we're going to move on to
or the Chargers.
Okay, enough Zay Flowers talk. Nobody wants that guy anyway. No, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Anybody you put, and I look at a guy like Sky Moore just to kind of bring some fantasy. If you go, that guy could just disappear if Zay Flowers goes to Kansas City. There's not as much fantasy impact on a guy that had high hopes last year, right? Sky Moore was looked at as a guy that we took as a sleeper. If Zay goes there, that kind of pushes him out. I think going to the Chargers doesn't really push anybody out. They re-signed Jalen Guyton, but nobody's writing home to draft Jalen Guyton.
Right.
So, the impact fantasy-wise would be better, I think, for not necessarily for Zay, but probably better for us as players than him ending up in Kansas City. But that's a small note. Here's a guy that I know a lot of people like as their sleeper and a hot guy, Josh Downs, North Carolina.
Yep, I've got him as one of my sleepers as well. I think he's going to go to Indy. He's real dynamic. He's productive. He's definitely a slot receiver kind of guy. He has showcased the ability at North Carolina to win at all three levels of the defense. He's crafty. He's a really good sudden change route runner. He can make those changes really quick. Thrives off of attacking the defense back. Yep. He attacks their base and their leverage. He uses sudden stops and starts to kind of create that separation. Like I was saying, sharp change of direction skills. One of the things he's really good at is contested catches. He caught more than 72% of his contested catch targets. He embodies the phrase "bigger player plays bigger than his size." For his size, he plays like a much bigger receiver. He doesn't have a huge catch radius and frame, and it shows when he does play against really physical defenders. He's 5'9", 171 pounds. He's had issues with drops in the past, and I put this as really only a slot receiver. He's going to be a slot guy wherever he goes. I'd be surprised if they used him for anything other than that. I think he would be a good fit in Indy. I think he would provide a solid, slot role for them. And he plays big compared to his size, although I think he can definitely stand to put on some weight. I think he can at 5'9", at least more than 171. If he could hit like the 180, 190 range, would be better. But yeah, that's where I'm looking at for him.
Yeah, I think he's turned out to be a little smaller than I even expected him to be when he tested, or when they did his measurements. But he does have really good speed variation, stop ability, cuts well. I think he adjusts to poor ball placement too in the air, catches the ball away from his body. He uses good form, so I think he can clean up some of the drop issues of the past. I like Josh Downs a lot. There's a lot of talk about him going to the Bills, and I like that spot a lot. I think it fits very well in the slot with Diggs and Gabe, manning the two other spots. I think he could get a lot of work there right away. The Bills throw the ball a lot. I think there's plenty of targets for him in that offense. And there's a little talk about Diggs, maybe not being as happy there as he once was. Maybe something develops there and he has a bigger role by year 2. I don't know what kind of role he would have year 1 in that offense. There'd be some, as I said, but not a dominant role. That'd be more year 2, year 3, I think, for Josh Downs. But yeah, I like him in that spot. I think he fits well with the Bills, and I know they like him too. They've met with him, and they're scouting him pretty heavily. So
there you go. You get a gaining weight won't slow him down, but it will a cane.
I mean, Cubby, do you really think that with that size that he could really fill a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 role in that offense if, the other one leaves?
No, I don't think that he'll be wide receiver 1, but I think they throw the ball enough where he could be a very good complementary piece to their wide receiver 1. If something does happen where Diggs moves on, I think they'll be looking for another wide receiver 1. But Downs is an excellent, second target, third target, depending on who you got in your offense. I think his size is going to limit the kind of role you give him or expect him to have. But we've seen it in plenty of places, just because they're a smaller wide receiver, play primarily in the spot, doesn't mean that they can't have great fantasy seasons. Josh Downs, I think, is somebody who can do plenty well in fantasy for us, despite his size.
I like that. I think that he does, though, need to, even in the slot, like you have to be able to block a little bit in the NFL. He is very bad at that. I mean, he has the talent. I mean, this guy, he could have gone to Ohio State if he wanted to. He chose North Carolina. You see the numbers he's put up. He did it with Howell. He did it without Howell the following year. The way he catches contested balls, he's got all that. But if you can't block, you can only cover that up so much with the rest of your team and how much that's going to hurt you. But I can still see, even with that issue, him having a very good fantasy season, but how long he can keep doing that year after year, if he's not getting better at those things, the longevity of it for me is kind of in question. And I do say, like with what Manny said, is I think with a cane is a pass catching back. If he puts weight on, he kind of loses what he does well. If Downs puts weight on, yeah, he loses a little bit of speed, but there's other roles as a receiver that he can fill, where a cane as a running back, it's a little bit different. Like he would become a runner, not a catcher. That's just kind of my answer to it, whether it's wrong or right. I think that's a way to look at it. Is Downs with a couple pounds has more opportunity. A cane, yeah, he could become a runner, but what does that do to the pass catching? Now, if a cane can do both, perfect world. You gain some size, don't lose your speed. Winner, give me that's the guy I'm going after. No doubt. Who the hell is going to Minnesota? Diggs is a big baby. Shocker that I think JC's a Viking fan. No.
You think?
We all know that. Well, who is going to Minnesota? Who did we have in Minnesota?
I had Jordan Addison going to Minnesota.
Jordan Addison. I thought JC was on at that point. I knew we mentioned one guy there, so we'll see what JC thinks about that. We got Manny, leave my Terps alone. Gopher boy.
Maybe Boutte. So maybe,
So let's look at so we have on this list, and we'll wrap through these a little bit. I mean, we've got Jalen Hyatt, Keyshawn Boutte, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, and Cedric Tillman was what we had on the list. So let's, out of those guys, who do you guys really want to talk about? Because we'll talk more about them after the draft and where they'll land. But
I can roll with. I know you said you didn't have Tillman. I could talk a little bit about Tillman. I like Tillman. His footwork off the line is not great. It's it's fine. It's just not very nuanced. But that's not really his game. He's 6'2", 215. He's a physical guy. Typical X receiver type. He's not going to get bullied. He can fight through press. He's got powerful hands. He uses them to separate from DBs. There's enough to his route running, and he can get better. Powerful lower and upper half. He's well-balanced build. He's a long strider. Good speed, extra step or two when snapping off his route, but not bad. And he uses that body well to shield the ball from defenders. He catches the ball away from his body, adjusts to the ball in the air well. He can win those jump balls. That's something that he is better at than Quentin Johnston is, so he's the bigger receiver that does the jump ball stuff. He's a good blocker. Want to see him sell plays that aren't going to him a little bit more. One of the fits I had for him was the Cardinals. I think it becomes a bigger need once the D-Hop trade happens. They need that bigger type of wide receiver, the X wide receiver replacement. But yeah, I think the Cardinals are a good fit. I don't know if you guys have any team fits for him.
I don't necessarily have a team fit, but I do like Cedric Tillman. The more I looked at him, he strikes me as one of those guys that had a really good year a couple years ago, had an injury, and kind of lost luster because of that. But he had a lingering ankle injury that seems to be fixed. This guy with Hendon Hooker was an absolute monster. I mean, what he finished 2021 with through those last 6 games was insane. And I think that a lot of times we forget about that. And it's, what have you done for me lately? And, that could be a huge upside to a team depending on where he falls. I think with his size and what you've seen him do with Hendon Hooker, to me, he's got the fit to go anywhere. He's got the body and he's got the makeup. So he doesn't have some of those holes like we talked about, a smaller body. There's some things he doesn't do as well. Nobody's perfect. But because he's got the frame, you can work with it. There's no health issue with that frame and the skill set I've seen out of him at Tennessee. I think there really any team is a fit for him.
Yeah. I mean, you can't teach 6'2". That doesn't, you know what I mean? You can't teach that. But, and the thing is, like, he was the guy before Jalen Hyatt became the guy that ever, Jalen Hyatt is all the rage right now because of the Cedric Tillman injury. Before Tillman got injured, Tillman was the guy. So if Tillman never gets hurt, we might not even be talking about Hyatt at all. That's something that, we should talk about. I think that Tillman had that role for a reason. He's the bigger kind of wide receiver. The guy you said you don't want the wide receiver one unless he's 6'2" or bigger, and that's exactly what Tillman is. He's had that role in the past. I think he can step into, a team and build that role up and have that role for a team and do well for our fantasy teams, score touchdowns. 6'2", 215 is going to be useful in the red zone. I like Tillman a lot.
So let's go to Jalen Hyatt after that then, Charles, the teammate and the one that has, maybe, kind of benefited, but also got his number called, had a good season, and is now, up on that draft board. But I think that'll be interesting to see, NFL career, Hyatt or, Tillman.
Right.
Ooh, I kind of agree with Cubby. I think Hyatt got that because of the injury with Tillman. But in the same sentence, I mean, you have to applaud Jalen Hyatt, because one of the big things about football is when your number's called, you got to step up and roll. And Jalen Hyatt pretty much did it.
He did win the Biletnikoff.
I mean, yeah, but also in the same sentence, because of that injury and we not seeing him before because of Tillman, we haven't seen but like 1 year of solid production from Hyatt. So is he a one-hit wonder and go into the NFL and be a bust, or is he still who we think he is? He's definitely going to have to add some weight for me. His weight, he's 6 foot, but he's only 176 pounds. So
Yeah,
that concerns me with injuries.
Yeah.
Where are you at with that? I mean, you mentioned Jalen Hyatt, Cubby. So do you feel like with Hyatt, then who do you like better? It sounds like we all like Tillman better than Hyatt moving forward.
I do. I feel
Without
like
knowing where they go or anything like that, obviously. I mean,
Yes.
just looking at the player and the skill set.
yeah.
So if you're in the NFL draft, are you taking Hyatt before you take Tillman, or would you take Tillman before him?
I think Tillman is the more in demand kind of wide receiver for this draft, especially because there's just not too many guys that play the position that he can play. You know, like he's one of the bigger wide receivers in the class, more of that complete, you know, wide receiver 1X, you know, skill set. And there's just not a lot of those guys, especially in the top half of the draft. You know, there's a lot of these smaller, good route runner types. Tillman should be in high demand. I really think that, you know, because of the position he can play, he should go earlier in drafts than we're probably even really expecting. So
I agree with Rico's comment about him getting. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with Hyatt's size. He's gonna get jammed, especially when you get some of those bigger bodied corners. They're gonna jam him at the line. So,
and that's what you don't get with Tillman. And so for me, it's like we put all this, you know, as a collective group of football fans, we put all this hype in like quarterbacks that have that, you know, upside. My goodness, I mean, I look at Cedric Tillman as like a, you know, quarterback that's kind of raw, but has insane upside. And if I'm looking at that over a guy that's got 1 year of production and is very slender, and has his own holes and weighs $176, yeah, I mean, give me Tillman all day and I'll take my chances. So I think we're all kind of in agreement on that. So we'll see. We're either all going to be feeling good or feeling bad about that one in a few years. But I think that's where it stands right now. And, you know, Hyatt, maybe he can put on a little weight, but that changes his game. So
absolutely.
Let's go to Mr. Booty, Kayshon Boutte.
I was going to say, we can't skip my man, my LSU man. I'm college football. I'm an LSU fan all the way.
And the other way with him, I mean, very, very high prospect. Maybe number one prospect at times to people before this year started. He's a guy that's really slipped. So has he slipped to you, Charles? And what do you got for him?
He slipped a little bit to me, but I'm excited about him because of where I want him to go and where I think he can excel the best. I think he goes to the Niners. He is that run after catch, that yak kind of guy, and we all know the Niners. They like their yak bros. And he's been used a bunch of different ways. LSU found a lot of different ways to get him the ball. He lined up as an outside receiver. He's lined up in the slot to get free releases. He gets uncovered quickly. They've used him in motion, which we know the Niners love to use receivers in motions. Let me see. So he's good in a lot of different spaces. He's got decent speed. Issue with him, which I think can be worked on, he releases a little too slow, which has led a lot of defensive backs to be able to get their hands on him and alter his route. He definitely needs, he's got a small catch radius. Let's see. In closely contested situation, he appears to struggle to come down with the football with defenders contesting the catch. He's 5'11", 195. I think some of that stuff is technique issues that can be worked out. Biggest issue with a lot of these receivers is going to be focus drops. But I think in a Shanahan-led world where he likes to use his receivers, I think he fits to that.
Yeah, I think that he's got a pretty good release package. He's twitchy in his routes and after the catch. But I do want to see a little bit more explosiveness, a little bit more urgency off the line. He's got good suddenness in his hips at the break point. I think you mentioned it. He does have an issue adjusting to the ball in the air and to contact while the ball is in the air, positioning himself for the catch. He is strong at the catch point, but I feel like he could do a little bit better in terms of positioning himself. Let's see. Yeah, I think the Chiefs, maybe the Vikings are a good fit for him. Love to see him in a place where he could be used inside and outside. And I feel like the Vikings obviously are a good fit for that. The Chiefs also, they have several guys who they move around. More of a gadget. They have more gadget type roles than KC. And I feel like Kayshawn gives them more of a rounded wide receiver type. And I feel like they've already invested a lot in that position. I don't know. When do you guys think Kayshawn is going to go in the draft?
I have that wrote down somewhere. I'd have to find it.
I mean, it just depends on what teams think of him because, he did have the leg injury too, in 2021. It's only been a year removed. I know he didn't, it was pretty horrific. And so we look at knees, and ACLs and talk about, that second year. So, I guess it just kind of depends on how far he slips. But what do you have down there, Charles?
I am still trying to find it. I mean, I definitely don't expect him to go super early, by no means, but I could see him going round 4 or 5.
Okay. Yeah, that was my thinking. I was thinking maybe as soon as round 3. I don't really see the Chiefs investing much in the position before then. Maybe they do, but they've already invested, several premium picks in the wide receiver position. So that's why I had them down. I think they get themselves a pretty decent wide receiver later in the draft if they go that route. And obviously the Vikings, they got rid of Thielen. They have Osborne, who I feel like is more of a decent 3, like a really good wide receiver 3 than wide receiver 2. So they do need somebody to step into that role. I think Butte would be a nice fit for the Vikings.
Cubby, what would you say if he went to round like 5 or 6? What about Miami?
It's tough to find a role, and it's tough to get on the field anytime you go late in a draft. But yeah, round 5 or 6, place like Miami, where you could be the third or fourth option, that could be good for him. And then, obviously Tyreek Hill isn't going to play forever. He's not going to stay there forever. They have Waddle, who they're going to have to pay. Maybe he steps into a more premier role in the future, but I do like that fit. Yeah.
I would see somebody probably late 3rd and into the 4th. At some point, somebody in that bunch will have that need depending on how things have worked out the first couple rounds. But I late 3rd, probably just based on, what we've seen, what we know, what's out there. But I think after the 4th, I'd be a little shocked. But at that point, it's kind of like if you have any need for a receiver, you're probably taking a flyer in the 5th round on a guy, with this talent and what he was doing in 20, before he got hurt, which was just 2 years ago. So I do want to see if, and teams can kind of see that. You can see the explosiveness at the combine and in your workouts if there's, and no one's really perked up about him looking back to normal. So I don't think anybody's really looking to reach. But I think that if he falls, late 4 and into the 5th, at that point, everybody, will take a chance. You know what I mean? We got 2 more. We got Rashee Rice and Marvin Mims. So where are you on Rice, Charles?
I'm not very high on Rice. I do think he's got a good frame, good height, good length. He's dynamic in terms of his acceleration and his speed, his long speed. He has good balance. He shows up to the catch point and after the catch. Biggest concern, Yeah, okay, that was the one I wrote that down on. At SMU, he wasn't asked to run a whole lot of different routes, which to me, when you go into an NFL offense, you're going to run a lot of routes. There's not very many guys that are just going to run, 3 or 4 routes. He's going to have to adapt, and that's my biggest question: is can he adapt? He did have some insane catches at SMU, but he also had an issue with drops. I don't know what the drop rate was, or if it was even high enough to note. So the ability's there, and it's really just going to be a question on whether he can adapt, learn the different routes, how he will excel in them moving forward.
Yeah,
I like that.
Not super high on Rice myself either.
I think that one thing that Rice does do well, just to play the other side of it, is he does pass block really well. He loves to lay his body out there. That'll put him on the field. The SMU system just didn't call for a lot of those things, but when they did, the drops are a concern. That's on every scouting report. So I don't have the numbers in front of me, Charles, but every scouting report has that as a weakness. So it's definitely a glaring thing. But again, that's something that I think is fixable. I don't know, how you fix that, but maybe it's mental. I don't know. But I could see him, depending on where he goes, being kind of a sneaky sleeper, because he's going to get a chance to get on the field with that run blocking ability. I think probably one of the best run blockers, pass blocking guys in the draft. And that right there gives you an opportunity. So if he by chance can do that and gets a chance to get on the field the second half of the year and eliminates the drops, we could see a guy that turns into a pretty good NFL player. But temper expectation, because if he doesn't ever fix that drop problem, not going to be on the field very often. So very intrigued to see where he lands, how he gets on the field because of the pass blocking, and can he make the most of that opportunity? I think he's a guy that's going to get a chance with that blocking skill set.
Yeah, I think the Rams are an underrated fit for him. I had a hard time putting him with a good, in a good spot, but I think the Rams are a good spot. I think their second best wide receiver right now is Van Jefferson. So there's a spot, where he could step in. He's got the frame, he's got the size. I don't know what kind of role he has right off the bat, but there's not a lot standing in his way, especially in that landing spot. So, maybe a place like that. Outside of something like that, though, I don't know where Rice goes and has a big role year one.
Yeah, and I would say probably more long-term with him, wait and see, like when does it come? And if it's on a team that's a little deeper at that position, fantasy-wise, we're probably going to wait and see. But, I do think he'll get an opportunity to show that he does have a better route tree when given the opportunity and better hands because of that blocking ability. So,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see with him for sure. We got one more player here. Let's go with Marvin Mims, and that will conclude about 21 receivers and running backs. So,
I like Marvin Mims. Personally, I do like the style player that he is. He's very explosive. He does have a good ability to win downfield, produce after the catch. A lot of frequent big plays. In 2021 and 2022, he averaged more than 20 yards per reception. Hasn't struggled with drops like some of the ones that we've talked about. Despite his size, he does do well as a blocker. He processes quickly as a route runner, adjusts to zones and press coverage well. I think he's going to be definitely a slot guy, no matter where he goes, just because of his size and his speed. Where he can take advantage of free releases, things like that. He ran a 4.38 40. We all know speed can be dangerous. 5'11", 183 pounds. I don't mind him at that weight. I'd like him to see him like closer to 190. But overall, I like him. I think he's going to go to Cleveland just because, I think they could use a solid slot with his kind of speed to make plays. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. He does most of his damage off of free releases. So I think the slot is going to be where he plays the most. I do think you can use him outside. just not where you're going to put him most of the time, because he will get pushed off his routes by the more physical players. He's a speedy dude. He can get deep or be used as a very effective decoy. He draws flags often because of his speed. Not a precise route runner, but good body control, catches the ball away from his frame. Isn't really able to fight through contact and come down with the ball in those contested situations, but he shows that he can get hands on people, help a little bit in the run game, which I think will be important. I think that a good spot for him would be like New England. Bill Belichick uses players like him very well. As I said, he can put him inside or out, spend most of his time on the inside. They use guys like Juju that complement him well.
Maybe like a faster Julian Edelman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a spot like that, Bill Belichick has taken advantage of those types of skill sets before. I think he'd be very good in a spot like that with the Patriots.
I like that. I think, and that's his strength. He's a zone guy. He's an over the middle guy. The other things are a bonus or maybe something he becomes, but lack of size on the outside. I mean, get him into a place where we've seen proven production. And, get him in a spot where he can, like you said, get break free, get out in space, get the ball, and just be that guy, move the ball over the middle, move the chains, even a Robert Woods type guy, right? I mean, break free, get it, fall on it, 8-9 yards. I mean, I'll take a Robert Woods possession receiver all day long, as my, third option in the slot. So,
hey, you can't always count out those small guys too, because I mean, look at like Devontae Smith. He's not a big guy. But
he looks like he's going to break, man. I mean, his legs, he is a skinny dude, but he takes the hits. And but he is there aren't many guys with a small frame as Devonta Smith. I mean,
Tyler Lockett, he's another
Tyler Lockett.
Even
Lockett, I think, is a little bigger than, Smith.
Yeah, a little bigger.
But Devonta is that man. I will say that. I'm a big Devonta Smith guy, no doubt. So, well, guys, that was a lot of running backs and wide receivers. So all 21 will probably have a new home come, this weekend. So we're going to have about 40 players that we talked about over the last 2 weeks have a home. And we'll be back next Tuesday, same time, 12:15 p.m. Eastern. With the sports affiliation on YouTube, on Twitter, streaming that for you as well. So we appreciate everybody that tuned in. Enjoy the draft, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Charles, anything you want to say on your way out? And then Cubby.
No, man, I just appreciate everybody jumping in and talking with us and see you in the comments. We appreciate you. I know on Twitter, on draft night, we'll be on Twitter at the sports affiliation. Come hang out with us. We'd love to talk with you, hear your opinion. That's about all for me. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, same here. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I was going to say the same thing. Don't miss our draft party. We'll be partying during the draft, talking about the picks, just having fun, hanging out with a bunch of, people. Catch us at the sports affiliation during the draft. Come hang out with us, man. We're so happy that you tuned in today. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Appreciate all the comments, all the interaction, the viewers, everybody who watches the recording. Very much appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share it, comment, shoot us a message. Give us your thoughts. Let us know how off we are on some of these guys and where we're wrong, where we're right. We love it. We love it, the sports debate. We love the interaction. That's what our community is about. So follow these guys on Twitter. Follow at the Sports Affiliate on Twitter. Head to the website. Anybody you see with that TSA logo or connection, follow, hit them up. Great community. We appreciate you all. Charles, Cubby, thank you. So for Cubby, Charles, and SoCal, we are TSA. This is the TSA War Room. You guys have a good week. Go Lakers.
Go Lakers.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Later.